Hey guys, my name is Scoby and welcome back to another video. In today's video I'm going to be showing you how to play Atari 5200 games on your Xbox Series S or your Xbox Series X. This is going to be a nice quick and easy tutorial. I'm going to be showing you step by step how to do everything. Let's jump right into this. So I just quickly want to apologize for how my voice sounds. It is a little bit croaky, I'm a little bit sick right now, but I need to get some content out, so hopefully that's okay. I will also mention for today's video, we're already going to need to have both RetroArch and Dev Mode already set up on our Xbox Series S or our Xbox Series X. I'm not going to be showing you that in today's video, although I will be leaving a card on screen and a link in the description down below to my previous video where I show you step by step how to do that. So the first thing you need to do is back over there, follow that video, then you can come back over here and I'm going to be showing you specifically how to set up and play 5200 games on your Xbox. I will also mention from this point we're going to be using the most up-to-date version of Dev Mode and RetroArch as of November 2021. So for this method we're also no longer going to be using my Files Explorer, we're going to be using a Map Network drive. Just in case you didn't follow my most up-to-date RetroArch and Dev Mode install video, I'll be showing you in the next step how to set up a Map Network drive. If you already have this done from my previous video, you can skip these steps, move on to the next part, and then I'm going to be showing you specifically how to set up the content files we need, talking a little bit about games, and then actually setting up and playing 5200 games on our Xbox. Now I will mention for this Map Network drive, if you have already watched my most up-to-date video of setting up RetroArch, I did show how to do that there. Although if you didn't set that up previously, I will be showing it step by step. You can feel free to skip this step and just jump over to transferring files over. So the first thing again we need to do is open up our Xbox device portal. This of course can be found on the dashboard of our Dev Mode. You can find this Access portal and we're going to need to open this up in any browser that you want. From this point what we're going to be doing is coming to our left bar right here. We're going to be clicking on File Explorer and this is going to open up the File Explorer section. Once we're here, we're going to be coming to the top right and we're going to be clicking on this Browse option right here. This is going to open up a pop-up that's going to allow us to access remotely some files on our Xbox and access the internal storage on our Xbox. So to do this, what we need to do is copy this URL here at the very top. We can highlight it, we can right click and we can click copy. And we're going to be opening up a File Explorer on our Windows. We're going to be clicking on the URL path right here. We're going to be pasting in the URL that we just got, and we're going to be clicking enter to enter here. Now, if this is your first time doing this, it may ask you for a username and password. All of this information is also stored here, so you can simply copy all of this for your username and password. Now, this can get a little bit annoying as every time you want to get back here, you will need to manually enter this URL, you'll need to manually enter the password, and you'll need to manually enter the username. So instead, what we're going to be doing is two things. The first thing we're going to be doing is opening up our command prompt, and we're going to be automatically saving this password and username, so we no longer have to enter it manually again. To do this again, we're going to be opening up our web browser, and we're going to be copying this CMD key here at the bottom. We're simply going to highlight it, we're going to right click and we're going to be clicking copy. From this point, we're going to be opening up CMD in Windows. To this, we're going to be coming down to the bottom left. We're going to be clicking on our search bar and we're going to be searching for CMD. And we're going to be looking for the command prompt right here. We're going to left click to open this up and our command prompt should open. Once this is open, all we need to do is right click here. It will automatically paste everything we have. We simply click enter and then we should get this result here, credential added successfully. And that basically attaches this username and password to our Windows, so it'll automatically remember it every time. From this point, we have made it a lot easier. However, now from this point, you still need to know this URL every time you want to actually access the remote files. So what we're going to be doing is one extra step. This is optional, but we're going to be setting up a mapped network drive. So it'll actually be saved in our Windows so we can easily get back here whenever we want. What we're going to be doing again is copying this file path. We're going to be opening up another file browser in Windows and we're going to be clicking on this PC right here. And then here at the very top, we should have this option Map Network Drive. We can left click to open this. And here we're going to be able to enter a new drive that will automatically store this location. And since we've already saved the username and password in Windows, it means we'll really easily be able to access back here whenever we want. So the first thing you need to do is assign a drive letter. So you can choose whatever you want here. So I've already done this to my Z drive, but you can attach it to another drive, for example, Y, or any other available letter here in your Windows. We can then enter our folder location. So here you can just Control V again to paste in the folder location that you've set up previously. You can then enable automatic reconnect and sign in. I'm going to be disabling this, but you can feel free to enable this and you can connect using different credentials, although we're not going to be doing that in today's video. Once you're happy with everything here, we can click finish and then you will have a new mapped network drive that will show up here like this. It'll mention development files. It will then show the URL to your Xbox and now clicking this will open this up very easily. So we no longer have to locate back here manually. From this point, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be opening up the Windows apps folder and here we should see all the currently installed apps on our Xbox.
So at the top here we have my Files Explorer. Underneath this then I have two folders named Platinum Fox, and they have RetroArch mentioned in the title. This is my RetroArch folder, although depending on the version you're using it may be named slightly different, but there will be two folders here. Previously this folder started with 1E4C, although this can depend widely depending on the version you're using and depending on if it's a nightly or not, so I really don't know what to expect here. But you're going to be looking for some folder named RetroArch or something like 1E4C. Once you've located this folder, we're going to be looking for the second one on the list. It'll typically be a much larger folder. As you can see, this is around 1.4 gigabytes and the other one is around 3.5 kilobytes. We're going to be opening up this second folder, and here we should see all of our default installed RetroArch content. What we're going to be doing from this point is creating a new folder here that's going to store our BIOS files, or a brand new system folder, or creating a brand new system BIOS folder so we can access and transfer all the BIOS files we need for our emulators over here, or for today's video specifically the GBA emulator. What we need to do is right click here. We're going to be creating a new folder, and I'm going to be naming it System. And this is going to be our new system or BIOS folder for RetroArch. After this, we're going to be heading over to RetroArch and we're going to be manually mapping this so RetroArch knows to point here instead. While we're here, we can also add a couple of extra folders. We can add a saves folder, we can add a save state folder, we can add a config folder, and we can even add a games folder. Here you can pick and choose all of the different files that you will access regularly from RetroArch, and we can remap them so RetroArch will look here instead of on the internal Xbox storage that we cannot actually access any other way. Doing this method, we will easily be able to access this, so we can make backups, we can make copies. So this is definitely a method I'd recommend doing it. But for today's video, the only one that is necessary is creating a system folder, although you can feel free to make any of the other folders here as well that you like, but it is totally optional. From this point, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be launching RetroArch from here, and we're going to be brought up to our RetroArch UI. From here, we're going to be coming to the left, we're going to be coming to settings, and now we're going to be scrolling down until we see directory. And here we can see the directory for all the different assets inside RetroArch. So the first thing I'm going to be looking for is the BIOS and system file, as you can see right here. We're going to be clicking the A button to open this up. Once this opens up, we're going to be scrolling down until we see the S drive. We're going to be clicking the A button. We're going to be scrolling down to program files. We're going to be coming to Windows apps, and then we're going to be looking for our RetroArch folder, the same one that we've seen on our computer. So for me, it's Platinum Fox. I'm going to be looking for the second folder, and here I'm going to be looking for my system folder. I'm going to be clicking use this directory, and now what we've done is we have remapped this directory to our system folder on our mapped network drive. So RetroArch will now search there for our BIOS files instead of the default location. So from this point, you can feel free to update any of the other files you want. I'm going to be doing my config file, my save file, and a couple of the other ones. From this point, once you have everything mapped, we're simply going to be clicking the B button to come back out of here. We're then going to be coming to our main menu, and we're going to be coming to our configuration file, and we're going to be saving our current config, just so all of these extra changes are in RetroArch.
So from this point, now that we have our map network drive set up, we're going to be opening up the system folder here where we will need to add our 5200 BIOS. So at the moment I have my 5200.rom file here, which is my 5200 BIOS file. However, I will mention in today's video, I'm not going to be showing you where to download this. If you would like to download it online, you can feel free to search for that, but I will not be sharing any links. You can also create a backup of your 5200 BIOS, but again, I will not be showing you that in today's video. Once you've located to or downloaded a BIOS file for your 5200, we're simply going to be dragging and dropping this into the internal system folder here on our Xbox, so we can actually have that here. The next thing we're going to be talking about is games, and I currently have my Space Invaders game right here. Now again, I will also mention I'm not going to be showing you where to download games. Again, you can create backup or dumps of your existing games. Otherwise, you can feel free to download your games. Again, I won't be sharing any links to anything like that. Once you have your games, they will most likely come in a .zip file. Now, thankfully with RetroArch, we can play these games directly from a .zip. Although if you would like to extract your games, that's also fine. If you are going to be extracting your games, you can really easily do this in Windows by simply right-clicking, click extract all, and then your contents will extract out. And then you're going to be looking for a .a52 file, which is an Atari 5200 file. As you can see, I have that here with Space Invaders. Now, to play your games on your Xbox, there's two ways of doing it. We can transfer our games to an external drive, bringing them over to our Xbox and locate them there, or we can move them to the internal storage on our Xbox right here. For example, we can put them in the games folder or anywhere else that we want. For me, these games are so small and the loading speeds is so quick, I'm just going to be keeping them on an external drive. That's the best for me, but you can pick and choose what you want here. From this point, we're going to be taking our games over, however you want to transfer them over. I'm going to be heading over to my Xbox, and I'm going to be continuing everything else from there.
So now that we're over on our Xbox, I will mention if you are using an external drive like me, you might get this pop-up on screen when you first connect it to your Xbox. If this is your first time plugging in your drive, you might get this pop-up asking if you'd like to use it for Xbox game storage or media storage. It's really important here that you select media storage so we can add whatever files we want on here. Otherwise, if you select game storage, it will fully wipe your drive and only allow you to install Xbox games on this. So it's important that you make sure this is entered correctly. However, some people have had issue with RetroArch and with the latest version of dev mode. I would make sure your drive is formatted in an exFAT format. I've read this can help with some issues. So inside Windows, all you need to do is right click your drive. You can click Format. And during the formatting process, just make sure to select exFAT like you can see on screen. And hopefully doing this should make your drive readable and having no issues inside RetroArch. But this is something to keep in mind. Once you're over in your Xbox, we're simply going to be launching RetroArch. Once RetroArch is opened up, the first thing we're going to do is coming to our main menu. We're going to be coming to the load core option. And here we're going to be scrolling down until we see Atari. And we're going to be looking for Atari 5200 or Atari 800 in brackets. We're going to be clicking the A button to select this. And now we have our core selected. From this point, we're going to be coming down to the load content option. And here we're going to be locating to our games. So if you're like me and you're loading your games from an external drive, they will show up in your E drive. And here you can select them from any location. If you're loading them from the internal storage on your Xbox, things do seem to have changed a little bit, so it'll either be inside your S drive, which it is for me, and here it'll be inside your program files, Windows apps, and you simply locate your RetroArch folder. Now some people have had issues where it doesn't show up in program files and instead it shows up inside the deployment folder, or another folder here will exist with development files. That can be an option. The second thing that can happen is it can actually show up inside your D drive, inside development files. You can then come to Windows apps, and then here you can also select where your folder is. So it can be in one of these two locations as well. This is something I've recently learned I didn't notice in the past, but depending on where you have it set up, it can be inside either of these folders. So these are some things to keep in mind. From this point, all you do is locate your game. So I have my game here in a .a52 format. I'm simply going to be clicking the A button to select it. We will then get this pop-up on screen, and we need to change a couple of things before we can actually get this to fully work. So from this point, we're going to be clicking down and select, and we're going to be opening up our menu controls. We're going to be scrolling down here until we see the options tab. We're going to be clicking the A button to open this up. And here we're going to have some core specific options for our emulator. The first thing we need to change is the Atari system. By default, it's set to 400/800. We actually need to click A in here and we need to change this to 5200. So that's the first thing we need to do. We then need to back out of here. We're also going to need to come to our controls. We're going to be coming to our port 1 controls. And here we're going to change the device type from RetroPad to Atari joystick. You also have the option for the Atari keyboard, but for most people using a controller, the joystick is the better option. We're going to be clicking the A button to open this, and that's what we need to do. From this point, what we're going to be doing is restarting our game to make these changes to come into an effect. And now when we reset our game, it should work perfectly. We should be able to control our game from this point. As you can see, it works. My controller actually works. So you need to make sure to have these settings all set up. Otherwise, you will have issues and your game will not actually work. So these are a couple of important things to set up first to make sure everything works by default. From this point, there's a couple of extra settings we can go through. So if we open back up our menu, we can come to our options. There's a couple things. First thing we have is the video standard. So you can change it from NTSC and PAL. By default, I didn't have any issues with NTSC, and I believe in most cases you won't. But if you are using a different type of game from a different region, you might have to change between PAL and NTSC. So that's something to keep in mind. We can change the internal basic boot option. So hold option on boot. So I'm going to be leaving this off by default, but if this is something you need to check out, you can check this out as well. We have a couple of extra specific options, including boot from cassette, high res artifacting. We can auto detect 5200 cart type, which is another nice option. And we can also set up a joy hack for Robotron. So if you're going to be playing Robotron specifically, you can enable this. Most of these settings I didn't actually play around with too much. I felt like the default things were fine for me, but you can feel free to experiment it with you and your case. We can change the internal resolution. So by default, I didn't have any issues, but you can feel free to change to any other ones here as well. And then the last thing we can do is set up our RetroArch keyboard type. So by default, it's pole. We can also set callback. I've actually never used this before. I'm not sure exactly what it does, but I didn't have any issues. So I left all of these things on default. So that's a nice thing. The last thing you can do is once you have all these set up, we can go to manage core options, and we can actually save these as game options if you want. So for the specific game you're playing, you can save content directory options. So for the specific directory, or if you ever need to reset anything, you can come back here to the reset options, which will set everything to default, which is another really nice option. The last thing I'd recommend doing is creating a game playlist. This will make your RetroArch experience a lot better in my opinion, and it basically concatenates all of your games into one section so you can really easily find them whenever you need to, and then that's the last thing I'd recommend doing. From this point, I want to give a huge shout out to the channel members, Sean Daly and Joshua Davis. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. If you'd like to have your name shout out in future videos or some other perks, be sure to click the join button underneath any video on the channel. It would really help me out. Anyway guys, it's as easy as that to play 5200 games on your Xbox Series S and your Xbox Series X. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like. Subscribe if you're new, check out the other videos on the channel. If you want to support me, be sure to drop a super thanks to this video, I'd greatly appreciate it. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, as always, keep it saucy. Peace.